Logan Harper watched as bank officials placed the foreclosure notice on his farmhouse door. His calloused hands trembled as he crumpled the final warning letter. 6 generations of Harpers had worked this land, and he was about to lose it all. What he didn't know was that the luxury car now sinking in the river at the edge of his property contained the one person who could change everything, a woman whose wealth could save his farm, and whose broken heart might find healing alongside his own. But would pride let him accept help from a stranger whose designer clothes cost more than his monthly mortgage payment? Before we carry on, please hit the subscribe button to make my day, and let me know where you are watching from in the comments. The morning dew clung to the withered corn stalks as Logan Harper trudged through his failing fields, the weight of 6 generations of farming legacy heavy on his shoulders. At 34, his face was already weathered beyond his years, deep lines etched around eyes that had once sparkled with ambition. The drought had ravaged his crops for the 2nd straight year, and the bank's patience had finally run dry, much like the soil beneath his boots. Logan paused at the edge of his property, where the land sloped down to meet the Willow Creek, a usually gentle river that had swelled with last night's unexpected rain. From this vantage point, he could see most of his 200 acres, land that would no longer belong to the Harper family by the end of the month if he couldn't produce the $60,000 he owed. He pulled a worn photograph from his pocket, a family portrait taken when his father was still alive, and his mother's smile hadn't yet been stolen by cancer. His younger sister Abby stood between them, gap-toothed and beaming. Logan was 19 in the picture, already prepared to take over the farm someday. But not like this. Not with bankruptcy looming and his family scattered to the winds. "What would you do, Dad?" he whispered, his voice lost in the gentle rustle of the remaining corn. His father would probably have done exactly what Logan had attempted, diversifying crops, taking odd jobs in the nearby town of Pine Ridge, even selling off parcels of land until he had nothing left to sell except the homestead itself. Logan had struggled through 4 years of agriculture college to bring modern techniques to Harper Farms, but climate change and corporate farming had conspired against him, leaving him with barren fields and mounting debt. The distant sound of tires squealing jolted him from his thoughts. Logan turned toward the narrow bridge that crossed Willow Creek at the far edge of his property. The structure was old and poorly maintained, made slick by last night's rainfall. As he watched, a sleek black luxury sedan came into view, moving too fast for the wet conditions. The driver seemed to realize this too late, trying to brake on the slippery surface. The car fishtailed wildly before crashing through the wooden guardrail and plunging into the rain-swollen creek below. Without hesitation, Logan broke into a sprint. His long legs ate up the distance, boots kicking up mud as he ran toward the accident. The car had landed roof first in the water, flipping completely before beginning to sink. By the time he reached the creek bank, only the undercarriage was visible above the water. Logan kicked off his boots and dived in. The cold water shocked his system, but adrenaline pushed him forward. The current was stronger than usual, but he was a strong swimmer, having spent summers playing in this very creek as a boy. He reached the sinking vehicle and peered inside the driver's side window. A woman was struggling with her seatbelt, panic evident in her wide eyes as water filled the car. With powerful strokes, Logan maneuvered around to the passenger side where the window had shattered on impact. He took a deep breath and ducked below the surface, forcing his large frame through the opening. The interior was already half filled with murky water. The woman's struggles were growing weaker as she fought against both the rising water and the jammed seatbelt. Logan pulled the pocket knife he always carried from his jeans and sawed at the seatbelt until it gave way. The woman immediately began to float upward, but her foot was caught on something beneath the steering column. Logan reached down, feeling blindly in the cloudy water, until he found her ankle twisted in what felt like the strap of a purse or bag. He freed her leg and wrapped one arm around her waist, pulling her toward the broken window. His lungs were burning by the time they surfaced beside the rapidly disappearing car. The woman gasped for air, coughing violently, as Logan towed her toward the shore. She was slight in his arms, but the sodden weight of her clothes and the pull of the current made the short distance feel like miles. When they finally reached the muddy bank, Logan dragged them both onto solid ground. The woman collapsed onto her side, expelling water from her lungs between ragged breaths. Logan knelt beside her, His own breathing labored but his focus entirely on her welfare. "Are you hurt?" he asked, scanning her for obvious injuries. She was perhaps 30, with dark hair plastered to a face that, even in distress, struck him as uncommonly beautiful. Her tailored clothing, though now ruined, spoke of wealth beyond anything familiar in his rural community. A delicate gold bracelet glinted on her wrist, bearing a distinctive emblem he didn't recognize. "I don't think so," she managed between coughs. "Just shaken." Logan helped her to sit up. "We should get you to a hospital. Make sure everything's okay." "No hospitals," she said firmly, surprising him with the strength in her voice. "I'm fine, really. Just a few bruises." She attempted to stand but swayed dangerously. Logan caught her by the shoulders, steadying her against him. Her eyes, a striking amber color, met his with a mixture of gratitude and something else he couldn't quite identify. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You saved my life." Logan shrugged, suddenly self-conscious of his mud-splattered appearance and the day's stubble on his jaw. Anyone would have done the same. She shook her head. "No, they wouldn't have." She looked toward the creek, where only ripples remained to mark her car's watery grave. "All my things, my phone, my house is just up the hill," Logan offered. "You can dry off, use my phone to call someone." She nodded gratefully, and they began the slow walk back to the farmhouse, the woman leaning slightly against him when the ground grew uneven. Logan was acutely aware of his arm around her waist, guiding her up the path. She smelled of river water now, but underneath that was something floral and expensive. "I'm Logan Harper," he said, breaking the silence. "This is my farm. Well, for the next few weeks anyway." "Alexandra Caldwell," she replied, then added with a hint of humor despite her bedraggled state, "Most people call me Alex." He found himself staring at her profile, distracted by the elegant line of her jaw. "What brings you out to these parts, Alex? Not many city folks take the back roads." She hesitated just long enough for him to notice. "I was just exploring, getting to know the area." They crested the hill, and the Harper farmhouse came into view. It was a two-story structure, built by Logan's great-grandfather, the white paint peeling to reveal the weathered wood beneath. The wraparound porch sagged slightly on one side, a repair Logan had been meaning to make before more pressing matters took priority. Beside it stood the large red barn, its paint faded but still structurally sound. It would have been picturesque if not for the foreclosure notice flapping in the breeze. Alex's eyes lingered on the notice as they approached, but she said nothing. Logan felt a flush of shame creep up his neck. It was one thing to fail in private, another to have a stranger witness his shortcomings. "It's not usually this messy," he said lamely, moving quickly to tear down the notice before ushering her inside. The interior of the farmhouse was Spartan but clean, a testament to his mother's influence even years after her passing. The furniture was well worn but cared for, family photos lining the walls alongside his mother's cross-stitched samplers. Logan led Alex to the bathroom, providing her with a faded but clean towel and an old flannel shirt and jeans that had belonged to his sister. "These might be big on you, but they're dry," he said. "I'll make some coffee while you change." In the kitchen, Logan busied himself with the coffee maker, an ancient model that had been a wedding gift to his parents. He changed quickly in his bedroom, swapping his wet clothes for dry jeans and a worn flannel shirt before returning to set out mugs on the counter. A few minutes later, Alex appeared in the doorway, swimming in his sister's clothes though looking remarkably composed given the circumstances. "Better?" he asked, pouring a mug of coffee and offering it to her. "Much. Thank you." She accepted the mug, their fingers brushing momentarily. "Do you live here alone?" Logan nodded. "My parents are gone. Dad had a heart attack 6 years ago. Mom followed with cancer 2 years later. My sister Abby lives in Chicago with her husband. She's a teacher." Alex settled onto one of the kitchen chairs. "I'm sorry about your parents. It must be difficult managing this place on your own." "We do all right," Logan said automatically, the practiced response whenever anyone in town asked how the farm was doing. Then, unexpectedly even to himself, he added, "Or we did." Truth is, I'm about to lose everything." He wasn't sure why he was confiding in this stranger, except that there was something in her eyes that invited confidence, and perhaps the knowledge that she'd be gone soon made it easier to admit his failures. "The drought?" she asked. "Partly. Bad luck, bad timing, too much competition from the corporate farms." He shrugged. "Doesn't matter. Bank needs their money in 3 weeks, and I'm about 60,000 short." Alex sipped her coffee thoughtfully. "What would you do, if you could save it?" The question caught him off guard. Most people, upon hearing his situation, offered empty platitudes or awkward sympathy. "Diversify," he said after a moment. "More sustainable crops, less water dependent, maybe build some rental cabins by the creek for tourists, fishing weekends, that sort of thing. Pine Ridge is getting more visitors these days with the new state park nearby." He shook his head. "Doesn't matter now." Alex stood suddenly. "I should call someone to pick me up, and I'll need to report the accident." Logan pointed her toward the landline on the wall, one of the few luxuries he hadn't yet sacrificed. "Help yourself. I'll give you some privacy." He stepped out onto the porch, settling into the old rocking chair his father had favored. The sun was higher now, burning off the morning mist and promising another scorching day. He could hear Alex's voice, muffled through the screen door, speaking rapidly into the phone. 20 minutes later, she joined him on the porch, once again composed despite the too large borrowed clothes. "My assistant is sending a car," she explained. "It should be here within the hour." Logan nodded, unsurprised that she had an assistant. Everything about her, from her perfect posture to the way she spoke, suggested wealth and privilege. "I can drive you into town if you need to file a police report about the accident," he offered. "That won't be necessary. I've already made arrangements." She paused, studying him with those remarkable amber eyes. "Mr. Harper." "Logan," he corrected. "Logan," she amended with a small smile. "I'd like to compensate you for your help today." He straightened in the chair, pride stiffening his spine. "That's not necessary. You saved my life, and I'd do it again. For anyone. No payment required." She considered him for a long moment, then nodded as if confirming something to herself. "At least let me replace your sister's clothes. I'm sure these will be ruined by the time I get home. They're old. Don't worry about it." An awkward silence settled between them until Alex cleared her throat. "May I ask why you stay? If things are so difficult here?" It was a question Logan had asked himself countless times over the past few years. "It's home," he said simply. 6 generations of Harpers have farmed this land. My great-great-grandfather built that barn with his own hands. My grandfather expanded the property during the Depression when everyone else was selling. My father taught me to drive a tractor when I was 7, sitting on his lap while he worked the pedals." End quote. He gestured toward a massive oak tree visible from the porch. "My mother is buried under that tree, next to my father. This land isn't just dirt and crops to me. It's everything." Alex's expression softened. "I understand. More than you might think." Before Logan could ask what she meant, a sleek black SUV appeared on the long driveway leading to the farmhouse. It pulled up beside the porch, and a middle-aged man in a suit emerged from the driver's seat. "Ms. Caldwell," he acknowledged with a nod. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine, Jenkins, thanks to Mr. Harper here." She turned to Logan. "Thank you again. For everything." "It was nothing," he assured her, extending his hand. "Safe travels, Alex." She took his hand, but instead of shaking it, she held it between both of hers for a moment. "I hope things work out for you, Logan. With the farm." "Thanks," he said, though they both knew hope had little to do with his financial reality. He watched as Jenkins opened the car door for her, noting how she immediately seemed to transform back into the polished woman who must have been driving the luxury sedan, despite the borrowed clothes. As the SUV disappeared down the driveway, Logan couldn't help feeling that something significant had just slipped through his fingers, though he couldn't have explained why. With a sigh, he turned back to the day's tasks. The fence in the north pasture needed mending, and there were bushels of the meager harvest to take to the weekend farmer's market. The brief excitement of the morning receded, leaving him alone with the familiar weight of his troubles. The next 3 days passed in a blur of physical labor as Logan threw himself into farm work, partly to prepare for the market and partly to avoid thinking about the foreclosure. He was replacing rotted boards on the barn roof when the sound of tires on gravel caught his attention. Visitors were rare at Harper Farms these days, especially unannounced ones. Shielding his eyes against the sun, Logan watched as the same black SUV from days earlier made its way up the driveway. His heart gave an unexpected leap at the sight. He climbed down the ladder as the vehicle came to a stop. This time, Jenkins remained in the driver's seat as Alexandra Caldwell emerged from the back. She was dressed casually but expensively in slim jeans and a simple white blouse that probably cost more than his entire wardrobe. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and large sunglasses shielded her eyes. "Mr. Harper," she called, removing the sunglasses to reveal those distinctive amber eyes. "I hope I'm not interrupting." Logan was suddenly conscious of his sweaty t-shirt and dusty jeans. "Alex, this is a surprise." She approached with confident strides, carrying a large shopping bag. "I brought your sister's clothes back, cleaned and pressed." She held out the bag. "And I wanted to thank you properly for saving my life." "You already thanked me," he said, accepting the bag. "And you didn't need to worry about the clothes. I also brought this." She turned and gestured to Jenkins, who exited the car carrying a wicker basket. "A proper thank you. I thought perhaps we could have lunch?" Logan hesitated, glancing at his unfinished work. It had been a long time since he'd shared a meal with anyone besides the occasional Sunday dinner with old friends from high school who remained in town. Longer still since he'd spent time with a woman as attractive as Alexandra Caldwell. But her appearance here confused him. "I should clean up," he said finally. "Please, don't change on my account. I didn't mean to disrupt your day." She glanced toward the creek, visible in the distance. "Perhaps down by the water? It's a beautiful spot." 20 minutes later, they were seated on a blanket Jenkins had produced from the SUV, spread on the grassy bank overlooking Willow Creek. The basket contained an assortment of gourmet sandwiches, fresh fruit, imported cheeses, and a bottle of sparkling water. Logan felt both impressed and slightly uncomfortable with the obvious expense. "Jenkins will wait with the car," Alex explained as her driver retreated up the hill. "I told him we might be a while." Logan raised an eyebrow. "Will we?" She smiled, the expression transforming her face. "I hope so. We have some things to discuss." "Such as?" "Such as a business proposition." Logan paused with a sandwich halfway to his mouth. "I'm afraid I don't have much business to offer anyone these days. On the contrary." Alex carefully arranged cheese on a cracker. "I think you have exactly what I'm looking for." She went on to explain that she represented Caldwell Enterprises, a development company looking to invest in sustainable agriculture and rural tourism. The company was interested in properties with both agricultural potential and natural beauty, particularly those near expanding tourism markets. "Like the new state park," Logan said slowly, understanding dawning. "Exactly. Your farm is perfectly positioned, with the creek frontage and proximity to Pine Ridge. We're prepared to make a substantial investment in the right property." Logan's appetite vanished. "You want to buy my farm?" "Not exactly." Alex leaned forward, her expression earnest. "We want to partner with you. Caldwell Enterprises would provide capital for improvements, development of those rental cabins you mentioned, irrigation systems for sustainable crops. You would retain majority ownership and full operational control." "And what would Caldwell Enterprises get in return?" "A percentage of profits, once the farm becomes profitable again. And the satisfaction of preserving a family legacy while creating jobs in the local economy." Logan studied her face, looking for signs of deception. "Why my farm specifically? There are bigger properties for sale in the county, ones without massive debt." Alex hesitated, and for a moment, Logan thought he saw a flash of something vulnerable behind her polished exterior. "Your farm has potential. The location is ideal, and frankly, the price is right. We can resolve your debt with the bank and still have capital for improvements." It sounded too good to be true, which in Logan's experience meant it probably was. "And if I say no? Then I thank you for lunch and wish you well." She held his gaze steadily. This isn't a hostile takeover, Logan. It's an offer of partnership. But I understand if you're not interested. Logan looked out over the creek, the water now calm and clear. No evidence remaining of the accident that had brought this woman into his life. Was it just coincidence that she had crashed here, on his property, days before, making this offer? Or had she been scouting the area when she lost control of her car? May I think about it? He asked finally. Of course. She reached into her purse and produced a business card. My direct number is on the back. Take all the time you need. She paused. Well, all the time you have before the foreclosure. The reminder of his deadline stung, but he appreciated her honesty. He tucked the card into his pocket, and they finished their lunch in surprisingly comfortable conversation. Alex asked intelligent questions about farming techniques and listened attentively to his explanations of crop rotation and water conservation methods. In turn, he found himself curious about her work, though she spoke of it in general terms without revealing much about herself personally. As they walked back up the hill to where Jenkins waited with the car, Logan found himself reluctant to see her go. Why don't you stay for dinner? He heard himself ask. I make a decent pasta sauce, and I've got tomatoes from the garden that need using. Something like pleasure flickered across her features before her professional mask returned. I have meetings in the city this afternoon, unfortunately. But perhaps another time. Sure, he said, trying to hide his disappointment. Another time. As Jenkins held the car door for her, Alex turned back. Logan, I hope you'll consider our offer seriously. I think we could do something special here. He nodded, watching as she slid into the back seat. The SUV pulled away, leaving him standing in the driveway with more questions than answers and a business card burning a hole in his pocket. That evening, after a solitary dinner of garden tomatoes and pasta, Logan sat at his father's old desk in the study, Alex's business card propped against the lamp. He'd done some research online at the library in town, and Caldwell Enterprises was indeed a legitimate company with significant holdings in real estate development and, more recently, agricultural investments. Their website emphasized sustainable practices and community partnership, with several success stories highlighted from across the country. What he couldn't figure out was why Alexandra Caldwell, who, according to the website, was the CEO and principal owner of this major corporation, had personally come to make this offer, and why his failing farm had captured her attention. He picked up his phone and dialed his crack sister in Chicago. You think it's a scam? Abby asked after he'd explained the situation. I don't know what to think, Logan admitted. The company checks out. The offer is generous. Too generous. Maybe you're just due for some good luck, big brother. Logan snorted. When has our family ever had good luck? Mom always said luck is just preparation meeting opportunity. You've been preparing that farm for years, keeping it going against impossible odds. Maybe this is the opportunity part. Or maybe I'm being naive. Abby sighed. What choice do you have, Logan? The bank takes everything in 3 weeks, or you partner with this company and keep the farm in the family. Seems pretty straightforward from where I'm sitting. Nothing's ever straightforward when this much money is involved, Abs. Then get a lawyer to look over the contract. Use that fancy agriculture degree of yours to negotiate terms that protect your interests. She paused. And maybe consider the possibility that sometimes good things happen to good people. After hanging up, Logan stared at the business card for a long time before finally reaching for his phone again. The number rang 3 times before Alex's voice answered. Alexandra Caldwell. It's Logan Harper, he said, suddenly uncertain. Logan. Her voice warmed noticeably. I'm glad you called. Have you made a decision? Not exactly. I have questions. Lots of them. I'd expect nothing less. Would you like to meet tomorrow to discuss them? Yes, but not here, Logan said, making a decision. There's a diner in Pine Ridge called Maggie's. Good neutral territory for business negotiations. There was a smile in her voice when she responded. Maggie's it is. Shall we say noon? I'll be there. After hanging up, Logan leaned back in his father's chair, wondering what the old man would make of all this. Robert Harper had been stubborn and proud, unwilling to accept help even when he needed it most. But he had also been practical, doing whatever was necessary to keep the farm afloat for the next generation. "What would you do, Dad?" Logan asked the empty room, not for the first time. The next morning, Logan dressed in his best jeans and a button-down shirt that hadn't seen use since his mother's funeral. He arrived at Maggie's 15-minute spread, early, choosing a booth at the back with a clear view of the entrance. The diner was a Pine Ridge institution, with red vinyl seats and formica tables that hadn't changed since the 1970s. Maggie herself, now, in her 70s, still worked the counter most days. "Well, look at you all spiffed up," she commented, bringing him coffee without being asked. "Hot date?" "Business meeting," Logan corrected, ignoring the knowing look she gave him. At precisely noon, the diner's door swung open, and Alexandra Caldwell entered. She was dressed in a simple blue dress that somehow managed to look both professional and approachable, her dark hair loose around her shoulders. Heads turned as she scanned the room, her presence immediately changing the atmosphere in the small-town establishment. When she spotted Logan, her face brightened with a smile that seemed genuinely pleased to see him. She made her way to his booth, sliding in across from him with graceful ease. "This place is charming," she said, glancing around at the vintage decor and handwritten specials board. "Wait until you try the pie," Logan replied. "Maggie makes it fresh every morning." As if summoned, Maggie appeared beside their table, coffee pot in hand. "Coffee, hun?" she asked Alex. "Please." "Black." Maggie filled her cup, giving Logan a subtle thumbs up behind Alex's back before retreating to the counter. "I see you've made quite an impression," Alex commented, amusement dancing in her eyes. "Maggie's known me since I was in diapers," Logan said with a slight flush. "She thinks I don't get out enough." "And do you get out enough?" End quote. The question felt more personal than professional, but Logan answered honestly. "The farm doesn't leave much time for socializing, especially lately." Alex nodded, understanding in her expression. She reached into her sleek leather bag and produced a folder, placing it on the table between them. "I've brought some preliminary paperwork. Not a contract yet, just an outline of what we're proposing. I thought it might help address some of your questions." Logan accepted the folder but didn't open it immediately. "Before we get to that, I'd like to know why me? Why my farm? And why are you, the CEO, handling this personally?" Alex took a sip of her coffee, seeming to consider her response carefully. "The why your farm part is simple. Location, timing, potential. As for why me? She set her cup down. "Let's just say I have a personal interest in this particular project." "That's not really an answer." "No, it's not," she agreed. "But it's all I can offer for now." Their conversation was interrupted by Maggie returning to take their orders. Logan selected his usual a bacon cheeseburger with fries, while Alex opted for the house salad with grilled chicken. Once Maggie departed, Logan opened the folder and began reviewing the documents inside. The proposal was more comprehensive than he'd expected, outlining a 5-year plan for Harper Farms that included immediate debt settlement, irrigation improvements, construction of 4 luxury fishing cabins along the creek, and transition to organic certification for a portion of the cropland. The projected revenues were optimistic, but not unreasonable, particularly with the addition of tourism income. "This is thorough," Logan admitted, impressed despite his reservations. "We're serious about this partnership," Alex said. "We want it to succeed as much as you do. And if it doesn't? If these projections don't materialize? Caldwell Enterprises assumes that risk. You retain ownership of the land regardless. The worst-case scenario is that you end up with an improved farm, debt-free, and we write off a failed investment." Logan frowned. "That doesn't make business sense." "Sometimes business is about more than the bottom line." Something shifted in her expression, a momentary vulnerability quickly masked. "Sometimes it's about creating something meaningful." There was more to her story, Logan was certain of it now. But before he could press further, Maggie arrived with their food, effectively pausing the conversation. As they ate, the discussion shifted to more practical matters. Water rights, equipment needs, marketing strategies for the cabins. Alex was knowledgeable and quick to grasp farming concepts, occasionally surprising Logan with her understanding of agricultural economics. "Did you grow up on a farm?" he asked when she correctly identified the most cost-effective irrigation system for his soil type. "No," she said with a small smile. "But I've done my homework. This isn't my first agricultural investment." When the meal was finished, and Maggie had delivered slices of her famous apple pie, Logan sat back, considering everything he'd learned. "I'd want my own lawyer to review any contract," he said finally. Alex nodded, unsurprised. "Of course. And I'd want a clause guaranteeing the Harper name stays on the property, regardless of what happens. Already included in the outline, page 4. Logan tapped his fingers on the table, thinking. "I'd also want assurances about employment for local people for any construction or new positions created. That's actually one of our company policies," Alex said. "We prioritize local hiring wherever possible." Logan studied her face, looking for any sign of deception, but found only open sincerity. "Why do I feel like there's something you're not telling me?" Alex's expression flickered, confirming his suspicion. "There are aspects of this arrangement that are personal to me. They don't affect the business terms, I promise you that. I don't like mysteries, Ms. Caldwell. And I admire that about you, Mr. Harper." She reached across the table, briefly touching his hand. "But some stories take time to tell. Can you trust me that far?" The warmth of her fingers lingered on his skin after she withdrew. Logan found himself wanting to trust her, despite the warning bells of experience. "I'll have my lawyer review the proposal," he said, neither agreeing nor refusing. "And I'll let you know my decision by the end of the week." Alex smiled, apparently satisfied with this response. "That's all I can ask." As they prepared to leave, Logan insisted on paying for lunch despite Alex's protests. "My turf, my treat," he said firmly. Outside on the sidewalk, the summer heat had intensified, the air thick with humidity that promised an afternoon thunderstorm. Alex's driver was nowhere in sight. "Jenkins is running errands," she explained. "He'll be back in an hour or so." "I can wait with you," Logan offered. "Actually, I was hoping you might show me around town while we wait. I'd like to get a better feel for the community." Pine Ridge wasn't much of a town, with a main street of about 12 blocks, featuring a hardware store, a small grocery, a few specialty shops, and the obligatory chain pharmacy on the outskirts. But Logan found himself enjoying the role of tour guide as they strolled along the sidewalk, Alex showing genuine interest in the community's history and character. Outside the hardware store, they encountered Frank Delgado, who owned the farm adjacent to Logan's and had been a friend of his father's. "Logan!" Frank called out, his weathered face breaking into a smile. "Don't often see you in town midweek, Frank." Logan shook the older man's hand before turning to Alex. "This is Alexandra Caldwell. She's a business associate. Alex, this is Frank Delgado, my neighbor and the best sweet corn farmer in the county." Frank's bushy eyebrows rose at the introduction, his gaze curious as he shook Alex's hand. "Pleasure, ma'am. Any business associate of Logan's is welcome around here. We've been hoping someone would give this boy a hand." "Frank," Logan warned, embarrassment coloring his tone. "What? It's no secret you've had a rough go of it. Nothing to be ashamed of." Frank turned back to Alex. "The Harper place was the jewel of this county in its day. Could be again. With the right investment." "That's exactly what we're discussing," Alex said smoothly. Frank's expression brightened. "Well, I'll leave you two to your business then." He winked at Logan. "Don't be a stranger, son. Martha's asking about you." As they continued down the street, Logan sighed. "Sorry about that. Small towns. No need to apologize. He cares about you." Alex glanced at him. "Do many people know about the foreclosure? In a town this size? Everyone knows everything." Logan shrugged. "Most of them have been kind about it. Farming's a tough business these days, and I'm not the first to struggle." They paused outside a small boutique with handcrafted items displayed in the window. "Local artisans," Logan explained. "The owner, Sarah, started it as a co-op for people to sell crafts, preserves, that sort of thing." Alex studied the display with interest. This is exactly the kind of local business that would benefit from increased tourism. The sky darkened suddenly as clouds moved in, the promised storm approaching faster than expected. Fat raindrops began to fall, quickly increasing to a downpour. Logan grabbed Alex's hand instinctively, pulling her toward the nearest awning for shelter. They ended up huddled in the recessed doorway of the closed movie theater, watching as the street emptied of pedestrians. Alex was laughing, her hair dampened by the rain despite their quick retreat. "Sorry," Logan said, suddenly aware that he was still holding her hand. He released it awkwardly. "Summer storms come on fast here." "I don't mind." She pushed wet strands of hair from her face, her eyes bright with amusement. "Though I seem to be making a habit of getting soaked around you." Logan found himself laughing too, the tension that had surrounded their business discussion evaporating in the warm summer rain. Standing here with her, sheltered from the storm, he could almost forget the complications of their situation, the power imbalance between wealthy investor and struggling farmer. Almost, but not quite. "I should call Jenkins," Alex said, reaching for her phone. "See where he is." While she made the call, Logan watched the rain washing down the street, creating miniature rivers along the curbs. This storm would be good for his remaining crops, though too late to make a significant difference in this season's yield. "He's on his way," Alex informed Logan as she ended the call. "Should be here in about 15 minutes. The rain was letting up slightly, transitioning from downpour to steady shower. From their shelter, they watched as townspeople began to emerge from stores, darting between puddles. "Your town has charm," Alex observed. "It reminds me of somewhere I used to visit as a child." "Where was that?" Logan asked, seizing the opportunity to learn something personal about her. Alex's expression grew distant. "A small farming community in Vermont. My grandfather had a place there." She hesitated before adding, "It's gone now, sold off after he died." "I'm sorry to hear that. It was a long time ago." She turned toward him, her shoulder brushing his in the narrow doorway. "Did you always know you wanted to be a farmer?" Logan considered the question. "I went through a phase in high school where I thought I wanted something different. Applied to business schools, dreamed of a corner office somewhere." He smiled at the memory. "Then my dad got sick my senior year. I stayed to help with the harvest, deferred college. By the time he recovered, I couldn't imagine doing anything else." "No regrets?" "Some days, sure, especially lately." "Especially lately." He met her gaze. "But mostly no. There's something about working the land that gets into your blood. The connection to seasons, to growth, to continuity." Alex studied him with an intensity that made him both uncomfortable and intrigued. "That's exactly what I thought you'd say." Before Logan could ask what she meant, a black SUV appeared on the wet street. Jenkins had arrived. "That's my ride," Alex said, sounding almost reluctant. "Thank you for lunch." "And the tour." "Thanks for the pie," Logan replied. "And the opportunity." They dashed through the lingering rain to the waiting vehicle. As Jenkins held the door, Alex turned to Logan one last time. "I'll wait for your call," she said. "Don't take too long deciding." As the SUV pulled away, Logan stood in the rain for a moment longer than necessary, watching until it disappeared around the corner. Then, shaking his head at his own foolishness, he headed for his truck. He had a lawyer to see. The next morning found Logan in the cramped office of Walter Chen, the only attorney in Pine Ridge who specialized in agricultural law. Walter had been his father's lawyer and had helped the family through numerous legal matters over the years. "This is unexpected," Walter said, adjusting his reading glasses as he reviewed the Caldwell Enterprises proposal. "Very unexpected." "Good unexpected or bad unexpected?" Logan asked, leaning forward in his chair. Walter removed his glasses, cleaning them thoughtfully with his handkerchief. "That depends on what's motivating their interest. The terms are surprisingly favorable. Almost too favorable." "That's what I thought." "Have you run a background check on this Alexandra Caldwell?" Logan shifted uncomfortably. "Some basic internet research. The company seems legitimate. She's the CEO and principal owner." Walter nodded. "Caldwell Enterprises is indeed reputable. Founded by William Caldwell in the 1980s as a commercial real estate firm, expanded into various development sectors under his daughter's leadership. He paused. That would be Alexandra. So she inherited the company? After a fashion. There was some controversy when William Caldwell died unexpectedly 5 years ago. Alexandra wasn't in the original succession plan. She'd been estranged from the family business for years, working in environmental conservation, I believe, but she returned and took control, much to the surprise of industry observers. This was new information. Logan tried to reconcile the polished businesswoman he'd met with someone who had once chosen environmental work over corporate wealth. The company has pivoted significantly under her leadership, Walter continued. More focus on sustainable development, community integration. They've won awards for their approach. He tapped the proposal. This plan for your farm fits their current model perfectly. So you think it's legitimate? The offer appears genuine, yes, but that doesn't explain why they're so interested in your specific property, or why the CEO is handling this personally. Walter replaced his glasses. In my experience, when something seems too good to be true, there's usually a hidden agenda. Logan nodded, the same concern having troubled his sleep the night before. What would you advise? Proceed with caution. I'll draw up a counterproposal with additional protections for your interests. And in the meantime, perhaps dig a little deeper into Ms. Caldwell's background. There might be a connection to this area we're missing. I'll do that, Logan agreed, rising to shake Walter's hand. Thanks, Walter. One more thing, the lawyer added as Logan reached the door. Whatever you discover, remember that sometimes good business and good intentions can coexist. Don't let suspicion blind you to a potentially beneficial partnership. With that advice echoing in his mind, Logan spent the afternoon at the Pine Ridge Public Library, using their computers to research Alexandra Caldwell more thoroughly. Most of the information confirmed what Walter had already shared: her unexpected return to Caldwell Enterprises following her father's death, the company's shift toward sustainable development under her leadership. But it was a small article in a business journal from 5 years ago that caught his attention. It mentioned that Alexandra had spent the years before her return to the family business working for an environmental nonprofit focused on preserving family farms threatened by development and climate change. The organization had operated primarily in the Midwest, including counties not far from Pine Ridge. Could that be the connection? Had she encountered Harper Farms through her previous work? It seemed plausible, though it didn't fully explain her personal interest. As Logan drove home that evening, dark clouds gathered again on the horizon, promising another summer storm. His phone buzzed with a text message as he pulled into his driveway. It was from Alex, the number matching the one on her business card. Hoping you're making progress with your decision. Rain looks good for your fields. The message unsettled him slightly. Had she been watching the local weather, or could she somehow see his farm? The latter seemed paranoid, but his instincts told him there was still a missing piece to this puzzle. Instead of replying immediately, Logan walked the perimeter of his property as the first thunder rumbled in the distance. The creek was running faster than usual after yesterday's rain, the water clear but deep. He found himself standing at the spot where he'd pulled Alex from her sinking car, trying to reconcile the frightened woman he'd rescued with the composed CEO offering to save his livelihood. The rain began to fall as he reached the old oak tree where his parents were buried. 2 simple headstones marked their resting place, surrounded by wildflowers his mother had planted years ago that now grew unchecked. Logan knelt, clearing away weeds that had sprouted since his last visit. "What do you think, Mom?" he asked softly. "Dad would tell me to be suspicious. You'd probably tell me to have faith." The strengthening rain was his only answer, soaking through his shirt as he sat there, torn between hope and caution. Finally, as lightning split the sky, he made his decision. Rising, he pulled out his phone and tapped out a reply to Alex's message. "Proposal looks promising. Lawyer drafting counteroffer with some amendments. Can meet tomorrow if you're available. L." Her response came almost immediately. "Tomorrow works. Your place, 10 a.m.? Logan hesitated before typing. 10 a.m. I'll provide the coffee this time. By morning, the storm had cleared, leaving behind a freshly washed landscape and air that smelled of wet earth and growing things. Logan was up before dawn, completing his chores earlier than usual and taking extra time to tidy the farmhouse. He told himself it was professional courtesy for a business meeting, but he couldn't deny a certain nervousness that had nothing to do with the proposal. At precisely 10 a.m., the now familiar black SUV appeared on the driveway. This time, Alex emerged alone, dressed in jeans and a casual blouse, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She carried a leather portfolio instead of her usual designer handbag. "Good morning," she called, approaching the porch where Logan waited. "Beautiful day after the storm." "Nature's way of starting fresh," Logan replied, holding the screen door open for her. "Coffee's ready." In the kitchen, they settled at the worn wooden table that had hosted Harper family meals for generations. Logan served coffee in mismatched mugs, one bearing the logo of his agriculture college. "Have you lived here your whole life?" Alex asked, glancing around at the homey but dated daycare. "Except for college and a 6-month internship in California." Logan joined her at the table. "This house has always been home base." Alex nodded, something like understanding in her expression. "There's value in that. Rootedness." "My lawyer seems to think your offer has value too," Logan said, steering the conversation toward business. "With some adjustments." "I expected nothing less." She opened her portfolio, extracting a slim folder. "And I've brought something that might address some of your remaining concerns." Logan accepted the folder cautiously. Inside was a single sheet of paper, not a legal document, but a handwritten letter dated nearly 30 years earlier. The letterhead bore the name Caldwell Construction, an earlier iteration of her company. It was addressed to Mrs. Eleanor Harper, Logan's grandmother. With growing confusion, Logan read the brief message. "Dear Mrs. Harper, thank you for your hospitality during my visit to your farm last week. Your family's commitment to the land is inspiring, particularly in these challenging economic times. As discussed, while I cannot offer the loan extension you requested, I remain impressed by Harper Farms and the legacy your family has built. Perhaps our paths will cross again under more favorable circumstances. Sincerely, William Caldwell." Logan looked up, bewildered. "I don't understand. This is from your father? To my grandmother?" Alex took a deep breath, as if preparing herself. "My father visited Harper Farms in 1996, when your grandparents were struggling financially. They approached Caldwell Construction about a possible loan or investment to modernize the farm's irrigation system. He declined. I never knew about this. My grandparents never mentioned it. A year later, your family experienced one of your most successful harvests despite the outdated equipment. My father often spoke about it, the farm that proved him wrong. He used it as a business lesson. Never underestimate determination and knowledge of the land." Logan set the letter down carefully. "That still doesn't explain why you're here now, offering this partnership." Alex's amber eyes met his directly. "When I took over the company after my father died, I found a file he kept of missed opportunities, investments he regretted passing on. Harper Farms was in that file, with news clippings about your family's successes over the years. He'd tracked your progress." "That's unsettling." It was his way of learning from his mistakes. Alex leaned forward. "When I implemented the company's sustainable agriculture initiative, I remembered the file. I looked up Harper Farms and discovered you were facing foreclosure." She hesitated. "I was already planning to approach you when my car accident happened. It wasn't intentional, but it did give me a chance to see the farm, meet you, before making a formal proposal." Logan processed this information slowly. "So this is what? Making amends for your father's decision?" "Partly," Alex admitted. "But it's also good business. Everything I told you about why your farm is ideal for our investment model is true. The personal connection just made it a priority project for me. You could have told me this from the beginning. Would you have believed that the daughter of a man who once refused to help your family had suddenly developed a genuine interest in saving your farm?" She shook her head. "I needed you to see the business value first." Logan stood, needing movement to process his thoughts. He walked to the window overlooking his fields, where the morning sun now illuminated rows of struggling corn. The story Alex told filled in missing pieces, but trust remained a fragile thing. "I've been honest with you about everything else," Alex said quietly from behind him. "The terms of the offer, the business potential. This personal connection doesn't change those facts." Logan turned back to her. "Did you know who I was when I pulled you from the river?" "No," she answered without hesitation. "I was surveying the area, yes, but I didn't know it was your truck I passed on the road, or that it was your property where I crashed. That really was an accident." Her directness reassured him somewhat. "And now? What happens if I accept your offer? Does Caldwell Enterprises swoop in with corporate developers to transform my family farm into something unrecognizable?" "That's not how we work." Alex stood as well, closing the distance between them. "Our model is partnership, not takeover. You would remain the farm manager and primary decision-maker. Our capital, your expertise. The improvements would be mutual decisions. And if I refuse, then the offer expires, and I wish you well." She looked away briefly. "Though I hope it doesn't come to that." There was something in her voice that suggested more than business interest, a personal investment in the outcome that Logan couldn't quite decipher. Or perhaps he was reading too much into her words, distracted by an attraction he was finding increasingly difficult to ignore. "I need to think," he said finally. "Alone." Alex nodded, gathering her portfolio. "Of course. Take the time you need." She paused. "But for what it's worth, Logan, I believe we could build something exceptional here. Not just profitable, but meaningful." Logan walked her to her car, where Jenkins waited patiently. As she prepared to leave, Alex hesitated, then reached into her purse and pulled out a small, worn photograph. "My father kept this with the file," she explained, handing it to Logan. The faded image showed a much younger version of his grandparents standing proudly beside a man in a business suit who must have been William Caldwell. Behind them stretched the Harper fields in full, healthy growth. "He admired your family's resilience," Alex said softly. "As do I." As the SUV disappeared down the driveway, Logan remained standing there, the photograph in his hand and decisions weighing heavily on his mind. The next few days passed in a blur of activity as Logan consulted again with Walter Chen, spoke at length with his sister Abby, and spent hours walking his property, envisioning what changes the Caldwell partnership might bring. The deadline for the bank's foreclosure loomed ever closer, adding urgency to his decision. On the fourth day, as Logan was repairing an ancient tractor that had broken down mid-field, a familiar voice called his name. He emerged from beneath the machine to find Alex approaching across the field, dressed in practical jeans and hiking boots, her hair tied back and face free of makeup. "Didn't expect to see you here," he said, wiping grease from his hands with an old rag. "I thought maybe you'd lost my number," she replied with a small smile. "It's been 4 days. Been busy." He gestured to the tractor. "Always something breaking down around here." Alex surveyed the aging equipment with a professional eye. "That's a Model 4020. Good machine, but it's seen better days." Logan raised an eyebrow, surprised by her knowledge. "You know tractors? My grandfather had one similar to this on his Vermont farm. I used to help him maintain it during summer visits." She moved closer, examining the exposed engine. "Fuel line problem?" "Injector pump, actually." "How did you know that?" She smiled. "Lucky guess based on the symptoms. Mind if I take a look?" Logan stepped aside, watching with increasing amazement as Alex knelt beside the tractor, her manicured hands confidently examining the diesel injector system. She worked methodically, asking intelligent questions about the machine's history and maintenance. "You're full of surprises, Ms. Caldwell," he said finally. "Most people see the suit and the company title and make assumptions." She glanced up at him. "But I wasn't always a CEO. There was a time when fixing tractors and saving family farms was my actual job. With the environmental nonprofit." Her hands stilled. "You did your research. Enough to know there's more to your interest in my farm than business opportunity or your father's regrets." Alex straightened, wiping her hands on her jeans. "Yes, there is. I spent 5 years working with farmers across the Midwest, helping them fight against corporate takeovers and climate challenges. I saw firsthand what happens when family farms disappear, communities die, local knowledge is lost, and something irreplaceable vanishes from our cultural fabric. Then you return to run your father's corporation. Bit of a change in direction. I thought so too, at first. She leaned against the tractor, but I realized I could do more good with the resources of Caldwell Enterprises than I ever could as a nonprofit worker. I could actually implement the changes I've been advocating for. And my farm is one of those changes? Your farm represents everything I believe in, Alex said earnestly. 6 generations of agricultural knowledge, sustainable practices born of necessity, connection to the land. It deserves to survive, to evolve, rather than disappear. The passion in her voice was unmistakable, and Logan found himself believing her sincerity. More than that, he found himself admiring it. I'm inclined to accept your offer, he said finally, with the amendments my lawyer suggested. Alex's expression brightened. What amendments? Mostly guarantees about local employment, profit-sharing timelines, and an explicit statement that I retain final authority on agricultural decisions. He paused. And a personal addition. I want you involved directly, not just company representatives. Your knowledge and passion are as valuable as the financial investment. That's not a standard business arrangement, Alex said carefully. Neither is any of this. Logan gestured between them. But I think we both know this partnership has potential beyond business. A flush of color rose in Alex's cheeks, but she met his gaze steadily. I can commit to quarterly site visits and regular consultation. More would be difficult with my other responsibilities. Fair enough. Logan extended his hand. Do we have a deal, Ms. Caldwell? Instead of shaking his hand, Alex surprised him by leaning forward and placing a gentle kiss on his cheek. We have a deal, Mr. Harper. The warmth of her lips lingered as she pulled away, her amber eyes meeting his with unmistakable promise. For the first time in years, Logan felt something unfamiliar blossoming in his chest. Hope, not just for his farm's survival, but for possibilities he hadn't allowed himself to consider in a very long time. Now, Alex said, breaking the moment with a practical tone that didn't quite mask her own flustered reaction. Let's fix this tractor. I believe your injector pump just needs proper bleeding and adjustment. Logan laughed, the sound rusty, but genuine. Yes, ma'am. They worked side by side until sunset, grease-stained and focused on the mechanical problem. Their new partnership, taking its first tentative steps under the golden light of a summer evening. The weeks that followed brought a whirlwind of activity to Harper Farms. The partnership agreement was formalized, with Walter Chen and Caldwell Enterprises' legal team finalizing terms that satisfied both parties. The bank was paid in full, the foreclosure canceled, and for the first time in years, Logan slept without the weight of impending financial disaster on his shoulders. Alex returned to the city but remained involved through daily phone calls and weekly video conferences. True to her word, she took a personal interest in the revitalization project, frequently surprising Logan with her agricultural insights and practical suggestions. They developed an easy rapport that increasingly blurred the line between professional and personal. By mid-August, the first phase of improvements was underway. A team of local contractors began work on the irrigation system, while an environmental consultant assessed the land for organic certification. Plans for the creek side cabins were drawn up, incorporating sustainable building practices and designs that complemented the natural landscape. Logan found himself busier than ever, but energized by the progress. The farm was transforming before his eyes, not into something foreign, but into the realization of dreams he'd once thought impossible. And with each successful step, his trust in Alexandra Caldwell deepened. On a particularly scorching afternoon, Logan was marking boundaries for the cabin sites when a text message from Alex arrived. Surprise inspection. Look up. He raised his eyes to see her walking down the path from the main house, dressed for the heat in shorts and a light blouse, sunglasses perched on her head. She carried a cooler in one hand and waved with the other. Didn't expect you until next week, he called, unable to hide his pleasure at seeing her. Board meeting finished early. Thought I'd celebrate by checking on my favorite investment. She set the cooler down in the shade of a large willow tree. "And bringing lunch. You've been working straight through again, haven't you?" Logan shrugged. Guilty as charged. Lost track of time. Alex shook her head in mock disapproval as she spread a blanket on the ground. "All work and no play, Mr. Harper." "Says the woman who answers emails at midnight," he countered, joining her on the blanket. She laughed, conceding the point as she unpacked sandwiches, fresh fruit, and 2 bottles of iced tea. "Occupational hazard. But even I know when to take a break." They ate in comfortable conversation, discussing progress on the various projects and sharing stories that increasingly veered into personal territory. Logan found himself telling Alex about his college years, his brief engagement that had ended when his fiancée decided farm life wasn't for her, his mother's battle with cancer. In turn, Alex spoke of her childhood in her father's shadow, her rebellion against the corporate path he'd planned for her, and her grief when his sudden death forced her return. "Do you ever regret it?" Logan asked as they finished their meal. "Coming back to run the company?" Alex considered the question thoughtfully. "Sometimes. The responsibility is enormous, and there are days when I miss the simplicity of fieldwork. But then I see projects like this one taking shape, making a real difference, and I know I'm where I need to be." She looked out over the creek, where markers indicated the future cabin sites. "Though I admit, I envy you sometimes. The dailiness of farm life, the tangible results of your work, the connection to one place." "It's not always as romantic as it sounds," Logan reminded her. "There's plenty of mud, broken equipment, and disappointing harvests." "I know, but there's also this." She gestured to the landscape around them, the creek catching afternoon sunlight, the fields beginning to recover under new irrigation, the old oak tree standing sentinel over it all. A sense of belonging that most appareil people never experience. Something in her voice made Logan study her more closely. "You could have that too, you know. Not just as an investor." Alex turned to him, surprise evident in her expression. "What are you suggesting? That maybe your quarterly visits could become more frequent? That maybe there's room in this partnership for more?" The words hung between them, weighted with possibility. Logan hadn't planned to speak so directly, but the weeks of collaboration had built something between them that seemed increasingly difficult to deny. Alex's amber eyes searched his, vulnerability and hope mingling in her gaze. "Logan, there are complications involved in what you're suggesting. Professional boundaries, practical logistics." "I'm aware," he said, reaching out to take her hand. "But I'm also aware that life doesn't always follow a business plan. Sometimes opportunities appear unexpectedly, like a car in a river, or a proposal that seems too good to be true." A smile tugged at her lips. "Are you using my own business strategy against me, Mr. Harper?" "I'm suggesting a personal investment to complement the professional one." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "If you're interested." Instead of answering immediately, Alex leaned forward, closing the distance between them until her lips met his in a kiss that answered his question more eloquently than words. Logan responded in kind, one hand moving to cradle the back of her neck as the other still held hers. When they finally parted, both slightly breathless, Alex rested her forehead against his. "I should disclose that this possibility may have factored into my risk assessment from the beginning." Logan laughed softly. "And here I thought I was being spontaneous." "You were. I just hoped you might be." She pulled back slightly to meet his gaze. "But we should proceed carefully. This partnership is important to both of us, professionally and now personally. I don't want to jeopardize either aspect." "Agreed." "We take it slow, keep the boundaries clear when necessary." Logan brushed a strand of hair from her face. "But I'm not interested in pretending there isn't something here worth exploring." "Neither am I," Alex admitted, her expression softening with an openness he hadn't seen before. "Though I should warn you, my schedule is somewhat less flexible than yours. And I should warn you, farm life involves a lot of mud and early mornings." Her smile widened. "I believe I've demonstrated my ability to handle both." As if to punctuate her point, a distant rumble of thunder sounded, announcing an approaching summer storm. They looked up to see dark clouds gathering on the horizon, a familiar sight in the afternoon heat. "We should get back to the house," Logan suggested, beginning to pack up their lunch. Alex caught his hand. Or we could stay, just a little longer. I've always loved summer storms. So, they remained beneath the willow tree, watching as the storm approached. Speaking of tentative future plans and possibilities that had seemed impossible just months earlier, when the rain finally arrived, they made a laughing dash for the farmhouse, arriving soaked but exhilarated on the covered porch. As they stood there, water dripping from their clothes, Logan was struck by how similar yet different this moment was from their first meeting. Then, they had been strangers thrust together by circumstance. Now, they stood on the threshold of something neither had anticipated but both increasingly desired. "Welcome home," Logan said softly, the words carrying more meaning than he'd intended. Alex's eyes widened slightly before a slow smile spread across her face. "I think I could get used to that sound." And as they entered the old farmhouse together, the rain washing the world clean outside, Logan realized that sometimes the most unexpected currents could carry you exactly where you needed to be. The partnership between Harper Farms and Caldwell Enterprises flourished through the autumn months. The irrigation improvements yielded immediate benefits for the fall planting, promising a stronger harvest the following year. Construction on the first 2 creekside cabins progressed ahead of schedule, with bookings already accumulating for the spring fishing season. The organic certification process moved forward, opening doors to premium markets that had previously been inaccessible. And alongside the professional success, Logan and Alex navigated their personal relationship with the same careful attention they gave the business. Her visits became more frequent, often extending through weekends, while Logan occasionally traveled to the city, experiencing Alex's world of board meetings and urban life. They established a rhythm that accommodated both their commitments, building trust and understanding with each encounter. By Thanksgiving, the transformation of Harper Farms was visible not just in the improved infrastructure and new buildings, but in Logan himself. The perpetual worry lines that had etched his face were softening, replaced by an easy confidence that came from knowing his legacy was secure. And when his sister Abby arrived for the holiday with her husband and children, she noticed the change immediately. "You seem happy," she observed as they prepared the traditional family meal in the farmhouse kitchen. Alex had gone to greet Abby's family, giving the siblings a moment alone. "Really happy. Not just financially relieved." Logan glanced toward the living room, where Alex was showing Abby's children the family photo albums. "I am. It's not just the farm, though that's part of it. It's everything." Abby followed his gaze, a knowing smile forming. "She's not what I expected. When you said a corporate CEO was investing in the farm, I pictured someone different," Logan suggested. "Less genuine," Abby corrected. "Less invested in you, not just the property." She nudged her brother playfully. "Mom would have loved her, you know. Dad too, eventually, once he got past his suspicion of anyone in a business suit." Logan nodded, emotion tightening his throat unexpectedly. "I think so too." Later that evening, after Abby's family had departed for their hotel in town, Logan and Alex walked to the old oak tree where his parents were buried. The night was clear and cold, stars brilliant in the rural darkness. Logan placed a small arrangement of late-blooming flowers from his mother's garden on the graves, while Alex stood respectfully beside him. "I wish I could have met them," she said softly. "From everything you've told me, they were remarkable people." "They were ordinary in many ways," Logan replied. "Hard-working, stubborn, devoted to this place and each other, but yes, remarkable in their own right." Alex slipped her hand into his. "They raised a remarkable son." Logan squeezed her fingers gently, before turning to face her. "There's something I've been wanting to ask you, something I've been thinking about for a while now." In the moonlight, Alex's face was luminous, her amber eyes reflecting starlight as she waited. "The farmhouse has always been too big for just me," Logan began. "Especially now with Abby settled in Chicago. It's just empty space. And with you traveling back and forth so often," Alex's breath caught visibly. "Logan, are you asking what I think you're asking?" "Move in with me," he said simply. "Not full-time, if that doesn't work with your responsibilities in the city, but make this your home too. Be here whenever you can." For a moment, Alex was silent. and Logan feared he'd moved too quickly, asked for too much. Then she stepped closer, framing his face with her hands. "Are you sure? This is your family home, your heritage. Sharing it is a big step." "I've never been more sure of anything," Logan answered honestly. "You belong here, Alex. Not just as a business partner, but as part of this place, part of my life." Her smile blossomed slowly, like a sunrise. "Then yes, I would love to make this home with you, in whatever capacity works for both of us." As they sealed the agreement with a kiss beside the old oak tree, with generations of Harpers resting nearby and endless stars overhead, Logan marveled at how completely his life had transformed in just a few months. From the brink of losing everything to finding more than he'd ever imagined possible, all because a car had skidded into a river, bringing an unexpected heir to fortune directly into his path. Winter settled over Harper Farms with a crystalline beauty, blanketing the fields in snow and freezing the creek into a glittering ribbon. The cold months brought a natural slowdown to the agricultural aspects of the business, but progress continued on the cabins and planning for the spring planting. And in the farmhouse, warmth and life returned to rooms that had stood empty for too long. Alex divided her time between the farm and her corporate responsibilities, maintaining her apartment in the city but spending increasingly longer stretches in the country. She brought subtle changes to the farmhouse: new curtains, comfortable furniture, modern appliances that Logan had long foregone as unnecessary luxuries. But she was careful to preserve the home's character, consulting him on every alteration and honoring the history embedded in the walls. For his part, Logan found himself embracing aspects of Alex's world that he'd previously dismissed. He attended corporate events when invited, discovering he had valuable perspectives to offer in discussions about sustainable agriculture. He enjoyed occasional weekends in the city, experiencing the cultural offerings and fine dining that had once seemed frivolous. Their different backgrounds enriched rather than divided them, each learning from the other's experience. The winter holidays were particularly meaningful, with the farmhouse hosting its first Christmas gathering in years. Abby's family joined them, along with Frank Delgado and other neighbors, creating a celebration that honored traditions while establishing new ones. Alex, who had grown up with formal, often emotionally sterile holiday observances, threw herself into the warmth of country Christmas with childlike enthusiasm. On Christmas morning, after presents had been exchanged and breakfast enjoyed, Logan took Alex for a drive across the snow-covered property. He pulled the truck to a stop atop a small rise that offered a panoramic view of Harper Farms, the restored barn gleaming red against the white landscape, the creekside cabins nearing completion, the fields resting beneath their winter blanket, ready for spring's renewal. "I have one more present for you," Logan said, reaching into his pocket. "Something that belongs here, on this farm, and now belongs with you." He produced a small box, opening it to reveal a ring. Not a diamond, but a band of polished wood, inlaid with a thin stream of gold, reminiscent of the creek winding through their property. "My great-grandfather made this for my great-grandmother from a branch of the oak tree. The gold came from a small nugget found in the creek during the early days of the farm." Logan took Alex's hand. "It's been passed down through generations of Harper women. I'd like you to be the next to wear it." Alex stared at the ring, understanding its significance beyond mere jewelry. "Logan, are you proposing?" "I'm suggesting another partnership," he said with a smile. "A permanent one this time, one that combines the best of both our worlds, just as we've been doing these past months." Tears gathered in Alex's amber eyes, catching the winter sunlight. "Are you certain? Marrying me means accepting my life too. The corporate responsibilities, the travel, the public scrutiny. I'm certain that whatever challenges come with loving you are worth facing together." Logan's voice was steady, his conviction absolute. "The question is, are you willing to officially become part of this legacy? To be not just a Caldwell investing in Harper Farms, but a Harper investing in our shared future?" For answer, Alex held out her left hand, fingers trembling slightly. "Nothing would honor me more." Logan slipped the ring onto her finger, where it settled as though made for her. Then he gathered her into his arms, their kiss a promise against the backdrop of the land they both loved, now truly theirs to nurture together. Spring arrived early that year, bringing with it the frantic activity of planting season, and final preparations for the grand opening of the Creekside cabins. The month since Christmas had passed in a blur of planning, both for the farm's continued development and for a fall wedding that would unite the Caldwell and Harper names officially. The first hints of green were appearing in the fields when the cabins welcomed their initial guests, a group of fly fishermen from Chicago who had booked the entire property for a long weekend. Logan had been nervous about this aspect of their business plan, uncertain of his ability to play host after years of solitary farming. But Alex's confidence bolstered his own, and they greeted their visitors together, partners in every sense. "Welcome to Harper Farms," Logan said as he showed the men to their accommodations, surprised by how natural the words felt. "We hope you enjoy your stay." The cabins, built with sustainable materials and designed to blend with the natural landscape, exceeded everyone's expectations. Each unit featured panoramic views of the creek, high-end amenities that Alex had insisted upon, and rustic touches that Logan had contributed. The perfect balance of luxury and authenticity, just like their relationship. By the second day, Logan was conducting informal tours of the working farm for interested guests, explaining the organic methods they were implementing and the history of the property. He discovered an unexpected pleasure in sharing his knowledge, seeing his lifelong home through appreciative new eyes. "You're a natural," Alex observed as they watched their satisfied visitors depart at the end of the weekend. "They're already talking about booking for next season." Logan pulled her close, gazing out over the property that had transformed from burden to blessing. "It's easier when you believe in what you're offering." That sentiment carried them through the planting season, as new crops took root in revitalized soil. The farm's transformation continued, with renovations to the barn creating space for educational workshops and community events. What had begun as a desperate bid for survival was evolving into a vibrant agricultural center, a model of sustainable farming practices and rural tourism. By midsummer, Harper Farms had been featured in regional travel magazines and agricultural publications. The cabins were booked solid through October. The organic certification process was nearing completion, and the first crops planted under the new irrigation system promised an abundant harvest. On a perfect July evening, as golden light bathed the fields in warmth, Logan and Alex sat on the porch swing, sharing a bottle of wine and reviewing their progress. "We've accomplished more in a year than I thought possible in 5, Logan admitted, his arm draped comfortably around Alex's shoulders. "I still can't quite believe how much has changed." Alex leaned into him, her engagement ring catching the sunset light. "When I first proposed this partnership, even I didn't envision how successful it would become. The farm's financial projections are beyond our initial estimates." "I wasn't talking about the financial statements," Logan said softly, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Though those are nice too." She smiled, understanding his meaning. The best investments yield unexpected returns. The wedding preparations proceeded alongside the farm's development, with decisions about flowers and menus slotted between meetings about crop yields and marketing strategies. They had chosen the October harvest season for their ceremony, when the fields would be golden and the air crisp with autumn promise. The event would be held on the farm, naturally, beneath the old oak tree that had witnessed generations of Harper history. As summer waned and harvest approached, they faced their first significant challenge as a couple. Alex's board of directors, while supportive of her personal happiness, expressed concern about her increasingly extended absences from the corporate headquarters. Several major projects required her direct oversight, and pressure mounted for her to resume a more traditional executive presence. "They're not wrong," Alex admitted one night as they lay in bed, the windows open to the late summer breeze. "I have responsibilities to the company, to our employees and shareholders. I've been delegating more than I should." Logan propped himself up on one elbow, studying her troubled expression in the moonlight. "What does that mean for us?" "It means I need to spend more time in the city, at least through the fall quarter." She turned to face him, her hand finding his. "Probably 3 or 4 days a week until these projects are stabilized." The prospect of her extended absences settled heavily between them. They had grown accustomed to daily partnership, both in work and in life. "We knew this might happen," Logan said finally. "Your career has always been part of our equation, but the timing isn't ideal." With the wedding approaching and harvest beginning, Alex's voice carried the strain of competing loyalties. I could postpone our plans, if that would be easier. Logan shook his head firmly. The farm will be fine, harvest will proceed, wedding preparations will continue, and you'll be here whenever you can. He squeezed her hand reassuringly. We're building a life together, Alex. That means supporting each other through all the seasons, not just the convenient ones. The resolution wasn't perfect, but it was honest. In the weeks that followed, they adjusted to a new rhythm. Alex departed for the city each Monday morning and returned Thursday evening, exhausted, but determined to be fully present for their weekend time together. Logan managed the farm operations and wedding preparations in her absence, sending daily updates and consulting her on major decisions through video calls. It was during one such call, with Alex in her city office and Logan in the farmhouse study, that an unexpected complication arose. Alex had been detailing the progress on a major international project when her expression suddenly shifted, a mix of surprise and concern crossing her features. What is it? Logan asked, sensing the change immediately. My father's former business partner just walked into the office, she said quietly. Richard Mercer. He's been trying to arrange a meeting for weeks. I should probably go. Of course, Logan agreed. Call me later? Alex nodded, her attention already divided. I will. Love you. The screen went blank before Logan could respond, leaving him with an inexplicable sense of unease. Richard Mercer was a name Alex had mentioned occasionally, usually in the context of past corporate conflicts. From what Logan understood, Mercer had expected to take control of Caldwell Enterprises after William Caldwell's death, only to be superseded by Alexandra's unexpected return. Their relationship was complicated at best, antagonistic at worst. When Alex called back that evening, her voice was tight with barely controlled anger. Mercer's making a play for the company, she explained after Logan asked what was wrong. He's been quietly accumulating shares and courting board members. Today he proposed a merger that would effectively give him control. Can he do that? Not without a fight. The determination in her tone was fierce. But it means I'll need to stay in the city longer than expected, possibly through next week as well. Logan absorbed this news, concern for Alex overshadowing his disappointment at her extended absence. Do whatever you need to do. The farm will be here when you get back. That's just it, Alex said, hesitation entering her voice. Mercer specifically mentioned our partnership with Harper Farms. He's questioning the investment, suggesting it was a personal indulgence rather than a sound business decision. The implications stung, though Logan knew it shouldn't matter. Is he right? Of course not. The farm is already showing returns ahead of projections, but Mercer knows how to manipulate perception. He's using our relationship to undermine my business judgment. Logan ran a hand through his hair, frustration building. What can I do? Nothing right now. This is my battle to fight. Alex's voice softened. Just keep things running there. And don't worry about the wedding plans. We might need to postpone some decisions until this is resolved. Alex, Logan said, suddenly needing to ask the question that had formed in his mind. Is any of this a problem because of me? Because you chose to invest in a struggling farmer instead of some corporate venture? The silence that followed lasted just long enough to confirm his fears before Alex answered. No. This is about Mercer's ambition, not our choices. But our relationship complicates things, only in the eyes of people who don't understand what we're building. The conviction returned to her voice. I don't regret a single decision that led me to you, Logan. Not one. After they hung up, Logan walked outside to clear his head. The night was cool, early September bringing the first hints of autumn. The farm spread before him, thriving under their combined care, the creek reflecting moonlight where once a car had sunk beneath murky waters. So much had changed in just over a year. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of harvest activity for Logan and corporate maneuvering for Alex. Their contact was limited to brief phone calls and text messages, each carrying the strain of their separate challenges. The wedding plan stalled as Alex focused entirely on defending her position at Caldwell Enterprises. Logan threw himself into the farm work, finding solace in physical labor and tangible results. It was during the height of corn harvest, that Jenkins arrived unexpectedly at the farm, the black SUV raising dust along the driveway. Logan climbed down from the combine, wiping sweat from his brow as he approached the driver. "Is Alex with you?" he asked, scanning the vehicle for signs of his fiancée. Jenkins shook his head. "No, sir. Ms. Caldwell sent me to deliver this to you personally." He handed Logan a thick envelope bearing the Caldwell Enterprises logo. "She asked that you read it immediately." Logan's stomach tightened as he accepted the envelope. Official correspondence delivered by hand rarely contained good news. "Is she all right?" "Ms. Caldwell is handling a difficult situation with her characteristic determination," Jenkins replied diplomatically. "She requested that I wait for your response." With a growing sense of dread, Logan tore open the envelope. Inside was a formal letter on company letterhead, along with a complex legal document. The letter was addressed to Mr. Logan Harper, rather than the personal greetings he'd grown accustomed to receiving from Alex. As he read the contents, his expression darkened. The letter outlined a strategic reassessment of Caldwell Enterprises' investment in Harper Farms, proposing an accelerated buyout of their partnership agreement. The terms were generous, financially, more than fair compensation for the improvements made and future profits anticipated. But the message was clear. Caldwell Enterprises was severing ties with Harper Farms. There was no personal note from Alex, no explanation beyond corporate language about realignment of investment priorities and conflict of interest concerns. Nothing to indicate why she would dismantle everything they had built together, professionally and personally. "Jenkins," Logan said, struggling to keep his voice steady, "do you know what this means?" The driver's professional demeanor slipped slightly, revealing genuine regret. "I'm not privy to the details of Ms. Caldwell's business decisions, sir." "This isn't just business," Logan insisted, waving the document. "Where is she? Why isn't she delivering this herself?" "Ms. Caldwell is in negotiations that cannot be interrupted," Jenkins replied carefully. "She asked me to convey her apologies for the formality, but explained that time was of the essence." Logan folded the papers roughly, shoving them back into the envelope. "Tell her I received her offer, but I'll need to consult my lawyer before responding. And tell her that next time she wants to end our engagement, she might consider doing it in person." Jenkins winced visibly at the mention of their engagement. "Sir, I don't believe that's—" "Just deliver the message, Jenkins." Logan cut him off, turning back toward the combine. "I've got a harvest to finish." As the SUV departed, Logan stood motionless in the field, the envelope clutched in his hand, and disbelief warring with anger in his mind. After everything they had shared, after the promises made and future planned, how could Alex revert to cold corporate tactics? And why now, when the farm was finally prospering under their partnership? The rational part of him suggested there must be an explanation, that perhaps Mercer's challenge had forced her hand, that she was protecting the farm in some way he didn't yet understand. But the wounded part, the part that had finally opened his heart after years of solitary struggle, felt betrayed in the most fundamental way. Logan worked until well after dark that night, pushing the combine through row after row of corn, the mechanical rhythm offering refuge from his thoughts. Only when the equipment's lights began to flicker, signaling low fuel, did he finally head back to the farmhouse. The building seemed eerily quiet as he entered, too large and empty without Alex's presence. Her touches were everywhere: books on the coffee table, a sweater draped over a chair, framed photographs of the two of them on the mantel. Yet the woman herself was conspicuously absent, replaced by corporate documents that would erase her from his daily life. Logan reached for the phone, dialing Alex's number from memory. It went straight to voicemail, her professional greeting offering no comfort. He hung up without leaving a message. What could he say that wouldn't be either accusatory or pleading? Neither suited the man he had become over the past year. Instead, he called Walter Chen, arranging to meet the lawyer the next morning. Then he showered and fell into a restless sleep, dreams filled with sinking cars and rising floodwaters that threatened to sweep away everything he valued. Morning brought no clarity, only the practical necessity of continuing the harvest. Logan rose before dawn, downing black coffee before heading back to the fields. He had completed 2 rows when his phone buzzed with a text from Alex. "Need to speak with you. Important." Can you come to the city today? The message offered no explanation, no apology, no indication of what important meant in this context. Logan stared at the screen, torn between hurt pride and the need for answers. Can't leave Harvest, he texted back. Send Jenkins if you need signatures. Her response came quickly. Not about documents. Please, Logan. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't crucial. He sighed, conflicted. Whatever had prompted the buyout offer, he deserved to hear it directly from her. And despite everything, he couldn't deny that some part of him simply needed to see her, to look into those amber eyes and understand what had changed. I'll be there by noon, he finally replied. Your office or apartment? Neither. The Riverside Park bench where we talked that time after the board meeting, 1 p.m. The specification of a public meeting place rather than a private one sent another wave of unease through Logan. This was beginning to feel like a formal dissolution rather than a conversation between partners. Nevertheless, he arranged for a neighboring farmer's son to continue the harvest, showered and changed into clean clothes, and drove his truck toward the city. The journey gave him too much time to think, to replay the relationship from that first river rescue to the ring he had placed on her finger. None of it made sense alongside the corporate letter and this cryptic summons. Riverside Park was busy with lunchtime visitors when Logan arrived, professionals from nearby offices enjoying the pleasant September weather. He spotted Alex immediately, seated on a bench overlooking the water. She wore a business suit, her hair pulled back in a professional style, but even from a distance, he could see the tension in her posture. As he approached, she looked up, relief washing over her features. You came. Did you think I wouldn't? Logan remained standing, reluctant to sit beside her as he normally would. After that letter, I considered it. Alex glanced around nervously before speaking in a lowered voice. The letter wasn't my idea, Logan. None of this is. Then whose idea was it? Because it had your company's letterhead and legal team all over it. Mercer forced my hand, she explained, gesturing for him to sit. When he remained standing, she continued anyway. He convinced 3 board members that my investment in Harper Farms represented a conflict of interest, that I was diverting company resources for personal gain. Logan crossed his arms. And was he right? No! Alex's eyes flashed with genuine anger. Everything I told you about the business potential was true. The farm is already showing better returns than projected. But Mercer managed to create enough doubt that I had to make a choice. A choice, Logan repeated, flatly, between your company and our partnership, between fighting a protracted legal battle that would damage Caldwell Enterprises or creating distance between the company and Harper Farms while I neutralize Mercer's influence. She leaned forward intensely. Logan, I'm trying to protect both. By buying me out, by ending our engagement. That's protection? Alex paled. I never said anything about ending our engagement. Is that what you thought? The uncertainty in her voice made Logan finally take the seat beside her. What was I supposed to think, Alex? You vanish into corporate warfare for weeks, then send a formal buyout offer with your driver? No personal note, no explanation, nothing. I couldn't put anything personal in writing. Mercer has people watching me, looking for evidence to support his claims. She reached for his hand cautiously. The buyout offer is a temporary measure, a show of corporate governance to satisfy the board while I handle Mercer. Once he's dealt with, we can restructure the partnership. Logan wanted to believe her, but doubt lingered. And us? Was that a corporate strategy too? No. The single word carried absolute conviction. What's between us has nothing to do with business strategy, Logan. Nothing. Then why all the secrecy? Why meet in a public park instead of coming to the farm? Because Mercer is having me followed, Alex said, her voice barely above a whisper. He's looking for any evidence that my decisions about Harper Farms are personally motivated. If I visited now, in the middle of this battle, it would give him ammunition. Logan absorbed this information slowly, his anger giving way to concern. Is he really that ruthless? My father's company represents power and wealth that Richard has coveted for decades. He thought he was next in line until I returned. Alex's expression hardened. He'll use any tactic available, including our relationship, to discredit me. So what happens now? Logan asked, the practical farmer in him needing a clear path forward. You consult with Walter about the buyout offer but delay responding. I continue fighting Mercer at the corporate level. And we... She hesitated, vulnerability breaking through her professional exterior. We trust each other enough to weather this storm. The simplicity of her request struck Logan deeply. Trust had always been the foundation of their relationship, from that first business proposal to their engagement. Despite his hurt and confusion, he recognized the woman before him as the same one who had stood beside him in mud and rain, who had believed in his farm when no one else did. I can handle a delayed harvest, he said finally. I can even handle a complicated business restructuring. But I can't handle not knowing where we stand, Alex. Are we partners or not? In every sense? In answer, Alex removed her left hand from her pocket, where she had apparently been concealing it. The wooden ring he had given her still encircled her finger. Always, she said softly. No matter what corporate documents say temporarily, you are my choice, Logan. My future. Relief coursed through him, though caution tempered his response. Then we face this together, even if we have to maintain some distance for now. Alex nodded, her amber eyes holding his with the same directness that had first drawn him to her. It won't be easy. Mercer is persistent and well-connected, but I built Caldwell Enterprises into what it is today, and I won't let him take it from me, or use it to take me from you. For the first time since receiving the buyout letter, Logan felt the tension in his shoulders ease. The situation remained complicated, the future uncertain, but the essential truth of their connection was reaffirmed. Whatever corporate battles lay ahead, they would face them as they had faced every challenge since that day at the river together, even when circumstances kept them apart. As they parted ways outside the park, necessary precautions against watching eyes, Logan held Alex's gaze a moment longer than was perhaps prudent. Come home when you can, he said simply. As soon as it's safe, she promised. Keep the farm running. And Logan, she hesitated, a mix of determination and vulnerability in her expression. Remember that sometimes the most important work happens below the surface, where others can't see it. Growing. With that cryptic reminder, they separated Alex back to her corporate battlefield, Logan to his fields of ripening corn. The harvest would continue, above ground and below, until all was safely gathered in. The following weeks brought a storm of conflicting information. Logan received periodic updates from Alex via coded text messages, their content veiled behind agricultural terminology that would appear innocent to watchful eyes. Mercer cultivating additional board support, but resistance growing or corporate climate shifting, new strategies taking root. Meanwhile, the harvest proceeded apace at Harper Farms, the yield better than Logan had dared hope after years of drought-stricken seasons. The improved irrigation systems and sustainable farming methods were already showing tangible results, validating the partnership that was now officially in limbo. Walter Chen advised delaying response to the buyout offer through legitimate legal questions and clarification requests, a stalling tactic that gave Alex time to maneuver at the corporate level. But as September gave way to October, Logan found himself increasingly concerned about their wedding plans, still scheduled for the end of the month, yet completely overshadowed by corporate intrigue. It was during the final phase of harvest, with the wedding less than 2 weeks away, that the situation came to a head. Logan was in the barn, reviewing inventory with Frank Delgado, when Jenkins appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Harper," the driver said, his usual composure notably absent. "You need to come with me immediately." Logan exchanged a quick glance with Frank before addressing Jenkins. "What's happened? Is Alex all right?" "Ms. Caldwell is dealing with developments. She sent me to bring you to the city. It's urgent." The alarm in Jenkins's voice was enough to spur Logan into action. He quickly arranged for Frank to oversee the remaining work and climbed into the SUV without further questions. Only once they were on the highway did he press for details. "Richard Mercer has called an emergency board meeting for this afternoon," Jenkins explained, his eyes fixed on the road. "He's presenting evidence that he claims proves Ms. Caldwell has been misusing company resources." "What evidence?" I don't know the specifics, sir. but Ms. Caldwell seemed concerned enough to request your presence immediately. Logan's mind raced through possibilities. Had Mercer discovered something about their relationship that predated the investment? Some proof that the Harper Farms partnership was personally, rather than professionally motivated? Or was this simply another corporate tactic designed to pressure Alex? By the time they reached the Caldwell Enterprises headquarters, a sleek glass tower in the heart of the financial district, Logan's concerns had multiplied. He felt distinctly out of place in his work clothes, as Jenkins escorted him through the marble lobby and up to the executive floor, aware of curious glances from professionally attired employees. Alex was waiting in her office, pacing behind a massive desk with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic city view. She looked up as Logan entered, relief washing over her features before professional composure reasserted itself. "Thank you for coming," she said formally, nodding to Jenkins, who discreetly exited, closing the door behind him. The moment they were alone, her facade cracked. "Mercer found something. I'm not sure what, but he's confident enough to call a board vote on my leadership." Logan moved to her side, instinctively reaching to comfort her before hesitating, uncertain if such gestures were safe even in private. "What can I do?" "I need you to be present at the board meeting." She ran a hand through her hair, a rare gesture of stress. "Not inside the boardroom, but nearby. I might need to call on you depending on what Mercer presents." "Alex, I don't understand. What could he possibly have found that would require my presence?" She stopped pacing, meeting his gaze directly. "I think he may have uncovered information about my grandfather's farm in Vermont, the one I told you about that was sold after he died." Logan frowned, trying to connect this to their current situation. "What does that have to do with Harper Farms?" "Everything." Alex took a deep breath. "Logan, my grandfather's farm wasn't just any property. It was called Willow Creek Farm." The name registered immediately. "Like the creek on my property." "Exactly like the creek on your property, because they're the same creek." Alex's amber eyes held a mix of guilt and defiance. "Your farm borders what was once my grandfather's land. The property my father refused to help your grandparents purchase decades ago was the remainder of my grandfather's farm, being sold after his death." The revelation struck Logan like a physical blow. "You knew? All this time, you knew our farms were connected?" "Not at first," Alex insisted. "When I found my father's file on missed opportunities, I recognized your family name from childhood visits to my grandfather. I didn't make the geographic connection until I researched further. By the time my car went into the river, I was coming to confirm my suspicions." Logan stepped back, processing this new information. "So when you said the investment was both business and personal, I meant that restoring Harper Farms was a way of preserving what remained of my grandfather's legacy too. He loved that land, Logan. He taught me everything I know about farming during summers there. When he died, my father sold the property against my wishes. I was only 16, powerless to stop it. Why didn't you tell me this when you proposed the partnership? Would you have accepted if you knew? Or would you have seen it as charity, as some rich girl's sentimentality?" Alex's question carried the weight of months of concealment. "I needed you to consider the business merits first, to see that the partnership made sense professionally." Logan moved to the window, gazing out at the urban landscape so different from his fields. The revelation explained much about Alex's personal investment in Harper Farms, her unexpected agricultural knowledge, her passion for preserving family farming legacies. But it also raised new questions about her intentions from the beginning. "Does Mercer know all this?" he asked finally. "I think he's discovered the connection between the properties. If he presents it to the board as evidence that I invested company funds based on childhood sentimentality rather than sound business judgment," she left the implication hanging, "then everything we've built could be undone." Logan turned back to her. "But it's not true. The business case was solid. The farm is already showing strong returns. Facts may not matter if Mercer can create a compelling narrative about my personal motives." Alex moved to stand beside him at the window. "That's why I need you there, Logan. To help me tell the true story that, yes, personal connection brought the opportunity to my attention, but sound business judgment guided the investment." Logan studied her face, searching for any hint of further deception. "Is there anything else I should know before walking into this?" Alex hesitated just long enough to confirm there was. "My grandfather left the farm to me in his will, but my father challenged it and won control as my legal guardian. He sold it to developers who later went bankrupt, leading to the property being divided and sold off piecemeal. Your grandparents purchased their portion directly from the bank, and you've been trying to reconnect the properties," Logan concluded, seeing the pattern clearly now. "Our partnership was part of a larger plan to reassemble your grandfather's land." "Not exactly." Alex touched his arm cautiously. "I hadn't planned beyond saving your farm initially. But yes, the idea of someday reuniting the properties has been a dream. One I hoped we might share once you knew the full history." The board meeting was scheduled for 3 p.m., giving them barely an hour to prepare. Logan used the time to change into clothes Jenkins had thoughtfully brought from the city apartment, while Alex reviewed financial data that demonstrated the sound business reasoning behind the Harper Farms investment. As they waited in her office for the summons, a heavy silence fell between them. The revelation of their property's shared history had created a new distance, a barrier of withheld truth that needed addressing. But corporate crisis took precedence over personal reconciliation. "Whatever happens in there," Logan said as the appointed time approached, "we face it together. Business, personal, past, future. It's all connected now." Alex met his gaze with gratitude tinged with apprehension. Together. Jenkins arrived to escort Alex to the boardroom, leaving Logan to wait in an adjacent conference room. Through the glass wall, he could see board members arriving, greeting each other with professional cordiality that masked the power struggle about to unfold. Richard Mercer was immediately identifiable, a tall, silver-haired man with the confident bearing of someone accustomed to getting his way. When Alex entered the boardroom, her posture straight and expression composed. Logan felt a surge of pride despite his lingering questions. Whatever her initial motives, her commitment to both the farm and their relationship had been proven through consistent action. The woman facing down a boardroom of corporate power players was the same one who had fixed his tractor, who had stood beside him through drought and harvest, who had chosen love over corporate convenience. The meeting began, visible but not audible through the glass. Logan watched as Mercer took the floor, presenting documents and speaking with animated confidence. Alex remained calm, occasionally making notes but otherwise listening attentively. The other board members' expressions ranged from skeptical to concerned as Mercer continued his presentation. When Alex finally rose to respond, her demeanor was measured, professional. She distributed documents of her own, presumably the financial data showing Harper Farms' performance. The discussion grew more animated, with several board members asking questions that Alex answered directly. Then, unexpectedly, she turned toward the conference room where Logan waited and gestured for him to join them. Jenkins appeared at the door, ushering him into the boardroom where all eyes turned to assess this newcomer. "Board members, this is Logan Harper, owner and operator of Harper Farms." Alex introduced him formally. "I've asked him to join us to address questions about the operational aspects of our partnership." Logan nodded in greeting, acutely aware of his outsider status in this corporate environment. Richard Mercer regarded him with barely concealed disdain. "Mr. Harper," one of the older board members addressed him, "Ms. Caldwell has presented impressive financial projections for your farm. Are these numbers accurate representations of current performance?" "They're conservative, actually," Logan replied honestly. "Harvest yields are exceeding projections by approximately 12%. The cabin rental business is booked solid through spring, and our organic certification will be finalized next month, opening premium markets." Another board member leaned forward. "And the improvements to the property irrigation systems, sustainable farming methods, tourism facilities, these were implemented on your recommendation or Caldwell Enterprises?" "Both," Logan said. "It was a true partnership from the beginning. My agricultural knowledge combined with Ms. Caldwell's business acumen and the company's resources." Mercer interrupted smoothly. "A partnership that conveniently ignores the personal relationship between you and Ms. Caldwell. Or did that develop after the business arrangement?" Before Logan could respond, Alex intervened. "Mr. Harper and I developed personal feelings after working together on the farm project. Our professional relationship preceded any personal involvement. A convenient claim, Mercer countered, but difficult to verify, particularly given the previously undisclosed connection between Harper Farms and property once owned by her grandfather, Alexandra. The revelation caused murmurs among the board members. Mercer continued, clearly enjoying his moment of triumph. I've discovered that Harper Farms borders land that once belonged to Joseph Caldwell, Alexandra's curd maternal grandfather, land that William Caldwell sold against Alexandra's wishes. This investment represents nothing more than a sentimental attempt to reclaim family property using company resources. Logan watched Alex's expression tighten, recognizing the trap Mercer had laid. If she denied knowledge of the connection, he would likely produce evidence proving otherwise. If she admitted it, she confirmed his accusation of sentimentality driving business decisions. Before Alex could respond, Logan stepped forward. May I address this directly? The board chair nodded, curiosity evident in his expression. It's true that part of my property borders land that once belonged to Joseph Caldwell, Logan acknowledged. I learned this fact only today, but whether Ms. Caldwell knew this connection when proposing the partnership is ultimately irrelevant to its business merit. He turned to face Mercer directly. Good business often begins with personal knowledge. A connection to a place, an understanding of its potential that others might miss. Ms. Caldwell's familiarity with the area may have brought Harper Farms to her attention, but the decision to invest was based on sound business principles that have already proven profitable. Logan gestured to the financial reports on the table. Those numbers aren't projections anymore. They're reality. The farm's productivity has increased by over 30%. Tourism revenue has created an entirely new income stream. Property value has appreciated significantly. By any metric, this was a sound investment decision. Mercer's confident expression faltered slightly. Sentimental attachment clouded proper risk assessment. Other properties would have offered better returns, with less rehabilitation required. With respect, Mr. Mercer, Logan countered, drawing on his agricultural college background, farming isn't like other investments. Success depends on specific knowledge of the land, its history, its potential. Ms. Caldwell's childhood connection to neighboring property gave her insights that actually enhanced her business judgment, not undermined it. He turned to address the full board. I understand corporate governance requires scrutiny of investment decisions, but in this case, personal knowledge strengthened business judgment rather than compromising it. The results speak for themselves. A silence fell over the boardroom as the members considered his words. Then the board chair spoke. Ms. Caldwell, did you knowingly conceal the connection between Harper Farms and your grandfather's former property when presenting the investment opportunity to the board? Alex stood tall, meeting the question directly. I disclosed that I had prior knowledge of the area from childhood visits to my grandfather's farm. I did not explicitly state that Harper Farms bordered his former property because, frankly, it wasn't relevant to the business case. The investment stands on its own merits, as the numbers clearly demonstrate. The board chair nodded thoughtfully. And the personal relationship that developed subsequently? I followed all corporate governance protocols, Alex replied. When Logan and I began seeing each other personally, I submitted the appropriate disclosures to the ethics committee. There was no conflict of interest because the investment had already been approved and implemented. This revelation seemed to surprise Mercer, who quickly consulted his documents. Logan realized that Alex had protected herself procedurally. Even as their relationship deepened, after a brief consultation among the board members, the chair called for a vote on Mercer's motion to remove Alex as CEO. When the results were tallied, Mercer had failed by a significant margin. His expression darkened as he gathered his documents, offering no congratulations to Alex as he departed. The remaining board members spent another hour reviewing Harper Farms' performance in detail, with Logan providing additional context about agricultural operations and future potential. By the meeting's conclusion, the board had not only reaffirmed Alex's leadership, but also approved an expanded sustainable agriculture initiative based on the Harper Farms model. As they left the boardroom, Alex maintained professional composure until they reached the privacy of her office. Once the door closed behind them, she exhaled deeply, tension visibly leaving her shoulders. "You were brilliant in there," she said, turning to Logan with a mixture of relief and admiration. "Mercer never expected you to be so knowledgeable about the business aspects." "Agriculture degree," Logan reminded her with a small smile. "It wasn't all tractors and soil samples." His attempt at levity faded quickly as the weight of the day's revelations settled between them. Alex recognized the shift in his expression and moved to sit on the office sofa, gesturing for him to join her. "I should have told you about the connection between our properties," she acknowledged, meeting his gaze directly. "I was afraid you'd reject the partnership if you knew." "I probably would have," Logan admitted, taking the seat beside her. "At least initially. My pride would have seen it as charity or manipulation." "It was never charity, Logan. The business case was always sound." "I know that now." He studied her face, the face that had become so dear to him over the past year. "But relationships need honesty to survive, Alex." "Even when the truth is complicated." She nodded, accepting his implicit rebuke. "No more secrets. I promise. Including whatever else is in that file of your father's that you haven't shared yet." Alex's eyes widened slightly, confirming his suspicion. "There's a letter," she admitted. "From my grandfather to your grandmother after his farm was sold. Apparently they remained in correspondence for years afterward. He watched over your family's progress from a distance, the way my father did later." "Our farms were never truly separated," Logan realized. "Not in the ways that matter." "No, they weren't." Alex reached for his hand. "I was going to tell you after the wedding, show you the letters, propose that we formally reunite the properties. Not for business reasons, but for the legacy both our families valued." The mention of their wedding, still theoretically scheduled for later that month, hung in the air between them. The corporate crisis appeared resolved, but the personal trust damaged by revelations and temporary separations needed mending. "Do you still want to marry me?" Alex asked finally, the vulnerability in her voice striking him deeply. After all of this? Logan considered the question seriously, weighing the hurt of secrets kept against the understanding of why she had kept them. He thought about the woman who had worked beside him in mud and rain, who had fought corporate battles to protect their shared vision, who had recognized the value in his struggling farm when others saw only failure. "I want to marry you," he said finally. "Not because our farms were once connected, or because it makes business sense. I want to marry you because somewhere between pulling you from that river and standing in that boardroom today, you became the future I want more than any other." The amber eyes he loved filled with tears as Alex moved into his embrace. "Even when I'm difficult and stubborn and too corporate for my own good?" "Especially then," Logan assured her, holding her close. Holding her close. "Though I might need occasional reminders about the sentimental woman beneath the CEO exterior. I think that can be arranged," she murmured against his chest. They remained intertwined for several minutes, the city lights beginning to glimmer outside the office windows as evening approached. The day's battles were won, but important decisions remained. "About the wedding?" Logan began. "Given everything that's happened, do you want to postpone? Give ourselves time to rebuild?" Alex straightened, wiping away the traces of tears with composed dignity. "Actually, I was thinking the opposite. After coming so close to losing everything, I don't want to wait. The harvest is nearly complete. The weather forecast is perfect for an outdoor ceremony. This weekend?" Logan asked, surprised but not opposed to the idea. "Unless you think it's too soon. We could manage it with help. My assistant has kept most of the arrangements on standby despite everything." Logan considered the proposal. There was a certain rightness to cementing their union immediately after weathering their first major crisis. And the farm was at its autumn best. The fields golden with harvest, the old oak tree blazing with fall colors. "This weekend it is," he agreed. "A small ceremony, just family and close friends. And one corporate lawyer," Alex added with a smile. "Walter Chen deserves an invitation after everything he's done to help us." "Absolutely. And Jenkins, of course." "Of course." The tension that had pervaded their relationship for weeks dissolved into planning details and logistical arrangements. By the time they left the Caldwell Enterprises building, Hand in hand, without concern for watching eyes, their future had solidified once more into shared certainty. 3 days later, beneath the spreading branches of the old oak tree that had witnessed generations of Harper history, Logan stood waiting as Alexandra Caldwell approached across the autumn-gilded field. She wore a simple ivory dress that caught the golden afternoon light, wildflowers from both their properties woven into her loose dark hair. In her hands, she carried not a traditional bouquet but a small potted seedling, a new oak, grown from an acorn gathered beneath the ancient tree that sheltered them. Abby stood beside Logan as his attendant, while Alex had chosen Jenkins to escort her in the absence of family. The small gathering of witnesses included Frank Delgado and his wife, Walter Chen and his family, several board members who had stood by Alex Gatt during the crisis, and a handful of local farmers who had become friends to them both. The ceremony was brief but meaningful, with vows they had written themselves that acknowledged both their differences and their shared vision. As they exchanged rings, the wooden band for Alex, a simple gold one for Logan, a breeze stirred the oak's branches, showering them with golden leaves that seemed to bestow nature's blessing. By the authority vested in me by the state, the officiant pronounced, "I now declare you husband and wife. You may seal your union with a kiss." As their lips met, applause and cheers erupted from their gathered loved ones. When they turned to face their guests as a married couple, Logan and Alex carried between them the oak seedling, a symbol of new growth rooted in shared soil. The reception that followed in the restored barn was a blend of country warmth and elegant touches, much like their relationship itself. Local farm produce prepared by Pine Ridge's finest cooks, shared table space with champagne from Alex's corporate wine cellar. Music alternated between a local folk band and classic recordings, keeping the small dance floor filled as evening descended. During a quiet moment, as twilight painted the farm in soft lavender hues, Logan and Alex slipped away from the celebration to visit the creek where their story had begun. The water ran clear and peaceful now, giving no hint of the dramatic rescue that had first brought them together. "It's amazing how much has changed in just over a year," Alex observed, her hand comfortably entwined with her husband's. "From nearly losing the farm to bringing 2 family legacies back together," Logan finished, squeezing her fingers gently. "Your grandfather would be proud, I think. As would your parents." She leaned against his shoulder, contentment evident in her posture. "Tomorrow I'll show you all the letters, the full history. No more secrets." "Tomorrow," Logan agreed. "Tonight is for new beginnings." They stood in companionable silence, watching as the first stars appeared above the fields that represented both their past and their future. The distance between struggling farmer and corporate heir had dissolved, replaced by a partnership stronger than either could have achieved alone. From the barn, music and laughter drifted across the evening air, calling them back to their celebration. As they turned to rejoin their guests, Logan paused for one final look at the creek, the fields, the farm that had nearly slipped through his fingers. "Thank you," he said softly, the words meant for the land as much as for the woman beside him. Alex understood without explanation. "For what?" "For seeing value where others saw only failure. For believing in this place and in me. Always," she promised, the simplicity of the word containing depths of commitment that bound them together as surely. Their vows. Hand in hand, they walked back toward the lighted barn, their shadows merging into one as they crossed the fields of Harper Farms, a property that would, from this day forward, be known as Willow Creek Farm once more, honoring both the Caldwell and Harper legacies that had finally, after generations of separation, come full circle. 5 years passed with the changing seasons, each bringing new developments to Willow Creek Farm. The partnership between Logan's agricultural expertise and Alex's business acumen proved even more successful than their original projections, with the farm becoming a model of sustainable agriculture that drew visitors and students from across the country. The creekside cabins expanded to include an educational center where farming techniques were taught to the next generation. Organic certification opened premium markets for their crops, while innovative water conservation methods helped them weather the increasingly unpredictable climate patterns. Under their joint stewardship, the land thrived as it hadn't in decades. Alex continued her role as CEO of Caldwell Enterprises, but with a restructured schedule that allowed her to be fully present at the farm for extended periods. The corporate headquarters established a rural satellite office in Pine Ridge, bringing jobs to the community while reducing her commute. Richard Mercer eventually retired. His influence diminished after his failed takeover attempt, while Alex's sustainable agriculture initiative expanded to support family farms throughout the region. Their personal life flourished alongside their professional success. In the spring of their third year of marriage, their daughter Eleanor was born, named for Logan's mother but quickly nicknamed Ellie by everyone at the farm. She grew into a spirited toddler with her mother's amber eyes and her father's connection to the land, tottering after Logan through the fields and sitting importantly in Alex's lap during video conferences. On a perfect autumn afternoon in their 5th year, the small family gathered beneath the old oak tree, now accompanied by the seedling they had planted on their wedding day, which had grown into a slender young tree beside its curr. Ancient parent. Ellie, almost 2 and fiercely independent, explored the fallen leaves while her parents spread a picnic blanket in the dappled shade. "Hard to believe it's been 5 years," Logan remarked, watching his daughter's delighted discovery of an acorn. "Sometimes it feels like that car just went into the creek yesterday. And sometimes it feels like I've always been here," Alex replied, leaning comfortably against him as they sat. As though the time before was just preparation for this life. Logan pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Philosophical today, Mrs. Harper Caldwell?" She smiled at the hyphenated name they'd chosen, honoring both their families. "Must be the season. Autumn always makes me reflective." "Speaking of reflection," Logan said, his tone shifting to something more purposeful, "I've been thinking about the North Parcel." The North Parcel was the last piece of what had once been Joseph Caldwell's original farm, currently owned by a development company that had held it vacant for years. Alex and Logan had made several offers to purchase it, hoping to completely reunite the historic property, but had been consistently rebuffed. "What about it?" Alex asked, her interest piqued. "I had a call from Walter this morning. The development company has filed for bankruptcy. The parcel will be auctioned next month." Alex sat up straighter, eyes brightening with possibility. "Really? After all this time?" "Really," Logan confirmed. "Walter thinks we have an excellent chance of acquiring it, especially given our stewardship record with this property. The State Historical Society might even help, given the farm's heritage status now." The possibility of completing their years-long mission to reunite the original Willow Creek farm hung between them, rich with potential. It wasn't just about acquiring more land, but about honoring the legacy that had brought them together, about healing a division that had affected both their families for generations. "If we succeed," Alex said thoughtfully, "the entire original property would be reunited for the first time since my grandfather's death. Ellie could inherit it whole, the way it was meant to be." Logan nodded, watching their daughter, who was now carefully arranging acorns and patterns on a fallen log. "That's what I was thinking too. A complete legacy, not just fragments." Alex leaned forward to kiss him, the simple gesture carrying years of shared purpose and love. "Then we'll make it happen, together, as always." "Together," Logan agreed. Their attention turned to Ellie, who had abandoned her acorns and was now running toward them with the unsteady determination of a toddler on a mission. Her dark curls bounced with each step, her face alight with the joy of discovery. "Mama! Papa! Look!" she called, clutching something in her small hand. As she reached them, she proudly displayed her treasure, a tiny green shoot with 2 perfect leaves unfurling from an acorn still attached to its base. A new oak beginning its journey, from seed to sapling to tree. "It's growing," she announced with absolute certainty. Logan and Alex exchanged a glance of shared understanding as their daughter carefully placed the sprouting acorn in the soil beside their picnic blanket, patting the earth around it with solemn purpose. "Yes, it certainly is," Alex agreed, her words encompassing much more than the seedling. "Everything here is growing, exactly as it should." As afternoon mellowed into evening, the small family remained beneath the protective canopy of the old oak tree, surrounded by the fruits of their combined vision fields rich with harvest, cabins welcoming visitors seeking connection to the land, a home filled with love and purpose, and now, perhaps, the promise of completing the circle begun generations earlier. Logan Harper, once a struggling farmer facing foreclosure, looked out over the property that had transformed from burden to blessing. Beside him sat Alexandra Caldwell Harper, once a corporate heir searching for meaning beyond wealth, now rooted in the land her grandfather had loved. Between them played their daughter, the future of Willow Creek Farm personified in joyful exploration. The river that had brought them together continued its eternal journey along the property's edge, a constant reminder that sometimes the most unexpected currents could carry you exactly where you needed to be. And the farm that had nearly been lost now flourished, not just as a business or a home, but as the physical manifestation of a simple truth they had discovered together. That broken things could be mended, separated things reunited, and that with vision, determination, and love, even the most damaged legacy could be restored to something more beautiful than before. Above them, the ancient oak tree whispered this wisdom to its offspring, the wedding day sapling now stretching toward the sky, Ellie's newly planted acorn just beginning its journey, and all the future trees that would grow from seeds not yet fallen. The endless cycle of renewal, the promise that what is broken can be healed, what is separated can be reunited, and what is loved can endure. This was the true harvest of Willow Creek Farm, not measured in bushels or profits, but in the generations that would continue to nurture the land, in the legacy preserved through love and commitment, and in the simple truth that sometimes rescue comes in the most unexpected forms, bringing not just survival but transformation beyond imagination. And as twilight descended on the farm, painting the horizon in shades of promise, Logan and Alex gathered their daughter and walked hand in hand toward home, their footsteps sure upon the land that had brought them together and would sustain them always, through every season yet to come.